Order. Welcome to meeting number 38 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs. We recognize that we meet on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Pursuant to the order of the House of June 12th, the committee is studying Bill 27, Final Self-Government Agreement for the Tele-Go-Tili-Go-Tine Nation. And today's meeting is going to take place in a hybrid format. Members may be attending in person in the room or remotely on the Zoom application. So for the folks we have online, they have passed their tech test and have also the translation available. So we will be able to go forward. If I need to suspend to adjust, we will suspend to adjust as necessary, any technical issues. And remember, just one person speak at a time, please. It's very, very difficult for the interpreters, our wonderful interpreters who do such a great job. It really does. It cracks in their ear. It hurts. So let's be cognitive of that. So please wait to be recognized by me and make sure your questions are through me. As well, before we proceed with the witness, I need a budget. I need a budget approval of $1,000. It has been distributed. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt said budget? Yes. Got thumbs up. Great, great, great. I would now like to welcome our witnesses from the Tele-Go-Tine Nation Government, Inc., Sherry Hodson, President, and Paul Tan. They're by video conference. All right, you will have 5 minutes to present. Please.
Thank you very much. Good morning. On behalf of the Tele-Go-Tine government and its citizens, I want to thank everyone for allowing us the opportunity to speak before the House of Commons Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs about Bill C-27. The creation of Tele-Go-Tine government will provide stability and certainty for local investment and development. Recognition of our ancestral identity through education, policy, and program delivery. By passing Bill C-27, it will provide parliamentary recognition and acknowledgement of our right to self-determination within the Constitution framework of Canada. This right to self-determination is established through the Saulteaux Dene and Métis Comprehensive Land Claim Agreement. Once we receive parliamentary recognition and acknowledgement of the right to self-determination, we will be able to exercise Indigenous decision-making authority that accommodates our ancestral traditions and the modern living standard and needs of our citizens. Specifically, we can represent ourselves in protecting our heritage and pursuing economic opportunities that align with national security and sovereignty through government-to-government relationships. Bill C-27 and our final self-government agreement do not grant our self-government with additional Aboriginal titles or expand existing ones. What we will have is what is already provided through the Saulteaux Dene and Métis Comprehensive Land Claim Agreement. The Tele-Go-Tine government will continue to function within the town of Norman Wells and be a stable source of revenue for our community. The community is at a critical juncture as our biggest economic driver is shutting down, though we have anticipated this day. However, once Bill C-27 is passed, the Tele-Go-Tine government will be able to directly participate in opening up resource exploration and other economic development opportunities. I want to be clear. Our final self-governed agreement does not take away private land titles. In fact, we encourage private sector investment at fair market value and provide equitable treatment for our citizens. With this, I ask this committee and all members of Parliament to pass this bill as soon as possible so we can have an effective date of August the 1st, 2026. Otherwise, we will be required to hold a general election on September the 7th, 2026. As I do not want to run for elected position again, I also do not want to leave behind an incomplete transition process, as that will create uncertainty and instability. I want to complete this transition so that the next leadership will inherit a functioning self-government, allowing them to focus on attracting investments, generating economic opportunities, and creating programs and services that persevere our Indigenous heritage. Masicho, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we will proceed to our questions for the first round. The Conservatives have 6 minutes, and MP Schmale, you're first.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses, Madam President, and Paul. Nice to see you again. Thank you for all your assistance in responding to all those emails so quickly. I don't know how you did it, because I messaged you at some pretty weird times, and you shot back some answers. So I do appreciate that, and I think that collaboration was able to get us to the point we are at now, which is hopefully dispensing of this today, if possible. I guess the first question I have for you, Madam President, you have said you want this passed as quickly as possible. Do you see any changes that you wish to incorporate, or is the legislation, the implementation legislation, and the agreement as you want it? Is it correct in your eyes?
Yes, it is correct. Thank you very much for the question. I don't see the need for any changes at this time.
Okay, so no changes to implementation, the agreement's fine, everything's good. Okay, so that actually does help as we try to move this forward. So you mentioned in your opening remarks, you talked about this is the work building on the Satu Dene and Métis Comprehensive Land Claim. Of course, that was done in '93, give or take, the final agreement under Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. I do understand your government has advocated for economic development in the north, specifically around the opening of a number of mines and the benefits associated with that. You did talk about your economic driver shutting down, that being Imperial Oil. I'm sorry to hear about that. I do understand your government has a few businesses tied to the operation. That seems like it's going to be a massive hit for your community and your people.
Yes, with the closing of Imperial Oil, there will be some changes within the community. However, for the foreseeable future of what is going to happen there, I believe that we'll be continuing for several years to come with the work that we actually do, as you mentioned, our businesses.
Can you talk more about the work that you are expecting to do in the coming years?
We will continue to provide the work that we are doing to date, marine services, and the process through environmental work that we do with the both companies that we have. What we will see in the future, and with the new final self-government agreement in place, would be the regulatory process And we will also have opportunities that will come with facilities that will be required for restoration processes on reclamation work.
So it's my understanding the existing pipeline has come to basically its end of its useful life and is needing to be replaced. It's kind of caught up in a few environmental assessments. Has the government reached out at all through your knowledge, either to the company or you as the kind of the government of the people or of your nation around Norman Wells? Have they offered to maybe fast track the assessment to ensure that some certainty to Imperial Oil to maybe, who knows, maybe get a few more years out of their operations?
I would like to answer that if that's possible. Right now, the EA process has been ongoing. We've been reached out for the Section 35 consultation via the NEB, or its inheritance of it, to engage with us. I think the importance of it is that as a self-government, TGG, the Gothenburg government, will be able to directly participate in the engagement, that where our voices will be heard directly, and to advocate our support for the process. And this way, it allows us to engage in much more economical fashion versus as being engaged through as a Aboriginal stakeholder through the Statute Secretary Incorporated.
Okay, so that does definitely speak to the urgent matter that we're dealing with in front of us. I guess my concern is that Parliament has given the government pretty much every tool that they need to ensure that projects like this get approved as quickly as possible while doing the proper consultation. Yet it doesn't seem that they're actually using this tool that could provide a massive amount of jobs opportunity and wealth for not just Norman Wells, but surrounding areas. Given that, looking at my research here, it's about 70% of the tax revenue collected by the village of Norman Wells is from the Imperial Oil facility.
Unfortunately, that's bringing us to the end with only 10 seconds left. If you could submit that in writing, perhaps, or perhaps it'll come out later. Thank you. Next, we go to MP Hanley. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony, President and Mr. Tan, and nice to see you out there in Norman Wells. I might begin by just asking if you care to reply to my colleague, Mr. Schmel's question as an opening.
Thank you. The regulatory process that we've engaged in, as with every single regulatory process, it takes time. The issues that we have with the regulatory process is that right now we do want to make sure that the economic standards are increased and continue to where we continue to participate. At that point, once we become a self-government, once this bill C-27 is passed, the importance of it is that it allows TGG to directly advocate for the economic drivers to exist and continue to ensure that the regulatory process is not delayed, and to ensure that the Indigenous voices are heard directly to the regulatory versus being filtered through as an Indigenous stakeholder.
Thank you very much. President Hodgson, this self-government process, as you referred to it, it really originates from the Satu Deni and Métis Comprehensive Land Claim Agreement going back to 1993. So when you look at the history of how this is now coming imminently to the establishment of a modern treaty, can you talk about the significance apart from, apart from your, trying to achieve this within your presidency, and I completely understand that, but also the significance of it at this time, not just from the economic circumstances that you're being presented with, but from the progress towards the benefits that come with the establishment of a modern treaty.
With the beginning of the negotiations process that started decades ago, the elders that had wanted to see the future and the benefit of what it would be for self-governing ourselves, the same as it was years ago. From there to where we are today, and the benefit for the citizens of the final self-government agreement is to be able to govern ourselves in every way, from economic activity, traditions, education, and being able to have their voice heard on a level that that they have been wanting to see for the decades during the negotiation process. That's and for myself as a president, and as I mentioned, not seeking re-election, the certainty of having the foundation set is what I would like to see with the work of the citizens and what they wanted to see. Thank you.
Thank you for that reflection. I'm curious about your thoughts on Bill C-10, which I imagine you've been following, and that's the legislation on establishing a commissioner for modern treaties currently at third reading. And I just wondered whether you could comment on how, as you again move through the passing of this legislation, hopefully we get there, how you feel about the importance of Bill C-10, Commissioner for Modern Treaties, and establishing that office.
Mr. Hanley, if I may, I would like to answer that on behalf of Sherry and the organization. The Colonial Go-to government supports the Bill C-10, as that would enable, as once the Bill C-27, our bill, is passed, we'll be a member of that. We believe Bill C-10 advocates for not only us, but also advocates provide a single voice for all modern treaties, including self-government agreements. And we look forward to be engaging and working with the commissioning of modern treaty.
Do you want to take it, Laurie? Thank you very much. That's good to hear. I'll just cede to Ms. Idlout for the final 45 seconds, if I may, Mr. Chair.
I was going to remind you of the time. Thank you.
Just very quickly, and thank you so much for appearing at our committee. Could you share with us the extent of the celebration that would happen if this bill were to pass, and whether there would be any opposition from other parties regarding this bill?
If I understand the correction, are you asking whether or not we will have a celebration, and if there's any other oppositions outside of the parliamentary process?
Both. I think that it would be great to hear that there would be some celebration, but also just to understand whether there would be anyone that would oppose this bill.
So we received a overwhelming, around 85% approval that voted yes to this bill. Like every election and any ratification, there will always be individuals that don't want something, but we received a majority, overwhelming majority support. They look forward to having the self-government agreement since it's supposed to be 2021 for ratification, but things got delayed due to various reasons. So there is an expectation of a big celebration, and we already have a pre-celebration last July. And I imagine the community and its citizens will want another celebration once this bill is passed. And we look forward to inviting you all.
Thank you. And on that note, we go to Deputy Gill, 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Tan, for your witness statement today. As you just mentioned right at the beginning, you're for a quick adoption of the bill. I know that, Mrs. Chair, you mentioned some of the advantages to adopting this bill quickly. Over 33 years of work have gone into this preparation, even more. So what does this really or truly mean for the population of your nation, the fast adoption of this bill, and on the other hand, what are the negative elements, the cons, if we were to delay the adoption of the bill? Thank you.
The significance of adopting this bill and the passage of this bill is that it creates stability and certainty going forward to having not only the economic centerpiece of this community being shutting down, but also provides certainty on transitioning. Given the fact that we are moving towards the transition process, if we delay further, as President Hutchin has mentioned, it'll create a significant amount of uncertainty to those that are expecting self-government that should have happened 4 or 5 years ago. It creates not only disappointment, but also the trust of the process to creating one. That's the con of it. But the positive of it, more so, is that this, through the adoption and passage of Bill C-27, is allowing the stabilization of not only moving forward with a functioning government, but also ensuring that for the next centerpiece of consultation for of the highway, of the EA process for the pipelines or any other regulatory process, that give us certainty for to voice our support or our concerns versus being in the transitional process. Especially if this bill is not passed, we would be questioning what would be our identity is. Are we a self-government? Or are we still as a not-for-profit now? So by delaying further, it will create uncertainty to our citizens. It'll create uncertainty to our partners in the industry, and it will create uncertainty to our engagement with the territorial government and, in a certain extent, to the federal government as well.
Et peut-être, je sais qu'on a beaucoup axé sur.
And I know that we concentrated a lot on certainty for development and the economy and trust, of course, within the whole process itself, but for the population as well. I think, Mrs. Chair, you mentioned the issue of identity and the issue of being able to decide for oneself, which, of course, is highlighted and brought to the fore in this project. We're talking about government, self-government or self-autonomy. Can you talk about what this means to your nation, please?
So, as a self-government, part of being self-government is create a sense of identity. Te is where the oils is at, and the people of it. This creates an identity and preserves where the citizens have trying to call themselves as such. So having this agreement not only affirms what they have been calling themselves for the last since time immemorial, but also reaffirms the fact that they, at the current context, reaffirms their identity. We all, as a citizen of Canada, recognize the Indigenous identity, and this bill will reaffirm of who they are in the context of the Indigenous identity.
Merci. Peut-être une dernière.
Thank you. One last question, if I have time, Mr. Chair, for Mrs. Chair and Mr. Tan. Chair, you talked about ownership, property, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, but you talked about lightening fears or removing unfounded ideas that are not founded based on the nature itself of the treaty. Could you maybe talk about this a little bit? Thank you very much.
So, if I understand the question correctly, this agreement does not take away any Indigenous, does not add into any Indigenous Aboriginal titles than what the land claim already provides. We encourage, in fact, we do want to preserve private property rights. We want to ensure that private property rights are respected, while in recognition that our Aboriginal titles under the land claim is also equally respected. This bill does not expand what we ultimately already have. The land claim provide that, and we're happy with that provision under the land claim.
Merci beaucoup. Next,
Thank you very much.
second, and, for 5 minutes, we have MP Zimmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, President Hodgson and Paul Tan, for appearing at committee today. And you're probably aware of an announcement that was recently made. There's been a recent 30 by 30 announcement in Northwest Territories that essentially puts a fence around 30% of the Northwest Territories. And it sounds good, perhaps, as turning 30% of Northwest Territories into a park if you live in Vancouver or Toronto. But as you know, the economy is struggling in Northwest Territories, and the last mine that's still operational is about to close at the end of 2026. And really, economic development in Northwest Territories has stalled. We have heard from many First Nations in this very committee that economic reconciliation is key to Indigenous communities flourishing, whether it's in BC or Northwest Territories, really anywhere. Are you seeking this agreement to close down the area to resource development or help open it up for development?
We, as an organization, historically, with our history, we want to ensure that exploration to resources is the foundation of Indigenous economic sovereignty. We want to make sure that the process are understood. We want to ensure that our voice to support the exploration and economic development are established, that respect the local community. We have actively engaged and actively promote economic development through exploration, and we will continue to do so.
Maybe President Hodgson, can you speak to that? Because I heard you say earlier you wanted to generating economic opportunities as part of your goal. Maybe explain to the committee, what are some of your hopes and dreams for your community, economic development-wise, if this agreement is put in place?
Currently, some of the things that I would like to see is a continued opportunities for our citizens. Some of our citizens are in work within the businesses, within the community, and without. We also, as part of our organization, work together with 2 other organizations in the area that continually negotiate with organizations that want to come into our areas within our district, and the negotiating processes provides those opportunities to be expanded upon, such as mining and the different things that are being explored for at this time in in the Satu area, specifically in the Toledo Norman Wells district area. So my idea is to hopefully work towards having that process work well within the regulatory process so that they can move forward into a direction that is positive for our citizens in development.
Right, and it happens to be that this committee is doing an affordability study in the north about food affordability and housing and other things. And one thing that's key to affordability is having economic development or jobs that come around. So even if that food is a little bit more expensive, as we know it is in the territories, especially the further you get out of Yellowknife, at least you have an opportunity to have a wage that helps pay for that extra cost of milk and other foods, right? Maybe, just to explain, how much that the previous economic development has meant to the community in the past, and maybe even speak to some of those opportunities. You spoke in general sort of sense, but are companies kind of lining up to talk to you about, once this agreement is signed, that we're ready to go on the other side? So affordability, jobs key, but also maybe some key industries that are knocking at your door even now.
Probably have to put that in writing because we have 10 seconds, but perhaps it comes out in other questioning, but you can send it to us in writing, the opportunities too as well. Okay, next for 5 minutes, we have Jaime.
Mr. Chair, and thank you, President and Mr. Tan. I know that 5 minutes isn't really a long time to kind of go over the history of how this legislation, how this agreement has come to be. Can you take us back to the first steps where your nation, your First Nations communities decided that it was important to pursue a self-government agreement as opposed to what's currently in place, and why you believe that this would be good for the nation as a whole? And just, if you can give me a little bit of details about the journey that took to get here, it'd be great.
Thank you. After the signing of the Satu Dendi Métis Comprehensive Land Claim Agreement in 1993, Chapter 5 of that agreement is the self-government chapter. In 2007, the President and Board of the Day, after I think 13 years of having the Satu Dendi Métis Land Claim Agreement, decided that it was time to take that step. So they moved on a framework agreement that brought them to the process of the next couple of decades of negotiating. We have had continuity in place with the elected presidents of the day that continued to work towards the ratification that happened on March of 2025. During that time, it was a lot of working together with our group, our negotiations group, and some of the change that happened in there, as well as within the federal and territorial systems. It got us to the ratification and where we are here today, with some hiccups along the way, of course, with different things that happened within the world that made the process a little slower. But we are where we are today, and we're looking forward to having this passed so that our citizens can be reassured that the work that has been done for the last couple of decades is at a time when they can start working on next steps that will work well for the community and for the benefits of for the citizenship.
Okay, thank you. Just picking up on some of the conversation in the room. So you're absolutely happy with the way this legislation is written, and you need no changes for us to go through line by line in an efficient and speedy process where we can get this through to the House. And get to the celebration.
Yeah, no changes. We're waiting for the celebrations next.
I guess for all the other communities that are looking at this process and saying, wow, this is great that they're getting this done, what best practices would you recommend for other nations wanting to go down this route with our government? What would you say are maybe 2 or 3 key things that you think that we should be sharing with other nations that are going down this route as well?
If I may, I'll answer that. From our experience and in working with other communities, one of the experience that we've often shared in our regional meetings is to be open-minded to conversations. Most of our negotiation and to our appreciation to the federal team is to be open-minded to understanding where Canada is coming from as a policy position while advocating for ours. I think that's the most key part in negotiating this agreement is the trust and faith that all 3 parties, the federal, territorial, and ourselves, do want this agreement. We do want to work together in establishing a final settlement agreement that work for our community, especially given the fact that each community has different needs. So working with the federal system that to establish an agreement for the Gotene is a process where not only communication, but also understanding the constraints that each party bring to the table. So those are our best practices advice that we have shared.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions.
And you're out of time. So that's great. For the last question, we will go to Deputy Gill for 2.5 minutes.
J'aurais pas d'autres questions, Monsieur le Président.
I have no other questions.
Everyone, this brings us to the conclusion of the first round. I'm going to suspend for a little bit so we can go clause by clause. So suspend. If it's the will of the committee, we will now proceed to clause-by-clause analysis of this bill. Reminder that, yes, if you need interpretation, please leave it in your ear because the questions will be in French and English. So it's just easier and smoother if you have the piece in your ear, if you're answering questions or asking them. Okay, so I would like to provide members of the committee with a few comments on how committees proceed with the clause-by-clause consideration of a bill. This is an examination of all the clauses in the order in which they appear in the bill. I will call each clause successively, and each clause is subject to debate and a vote. If there are amendments to the clause in question, I will recognize the member proposing it, who may explain it. The amendments will then be open for debate. When no further members wish to intervene, the amendments will be voted on. Amendments will be considered in the order in which they appear in the package each member received from the clerk. Amendments have been given a number in the top right corner. So what we can do as well, we can, instead of me going through individually all of them, we could consider this, that if members, there are, basically the clauses are 2 to 44. So do we have unanimous consent to group them? We still can speak to them, but if we group them together, people could raise their hand and then say, I want to speak to this. So can we put them all together? Do we have unanimous consent? Nodding heads? Anybody opposed? Okay, so we're going to do that. Yes.
Did you have an issue with that? Oh.
Grouping them all to vote on all of them, but if people want to speak to any particular number, they can. Is that clear? I think so. Starting with 2, going to 44. Do I have anyone that wishes to speak to any of... Does anybody have anything? Okay, I can start with the first bit. He's okay.
2 to 44. And
2 to 44.
If anyone has an issue.
Anyone want to speak to anything? I'm seeing nods. No, you remember the last time I did that?
Very soothing.
Very soothing, thank you. I do not see. We have all these great folks here, if anybody had a question, but I'm not seeing any questions, so.
Do they want to add anything?
No. No, I'm seeing them nodding no.
We brought you here, you might as well give us something.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Taylor Chamberlain. I'm the lead negotiator for the final self-government agreement for the Tlagot-Lake-Otiné. If I can add anything, I just want to acknowledge Shannon, who was the federal negotiator on this agreement for over about a decade. And she put a lot of love and effort into this agreement, and we learned on May 8th that she had passed. So we're bringing this agreement hopefully to fruition through this session, but I do want to just acknowledge the amount of hard work that went into it, and the people who may not be able to see us get this next step. Thank you.
Well, thank you ever so much for that intervention, and on behalf of the committee, thank you to Shannon for what she did over the last decade. So thank you, Chi Miigwech. Okay, anybody have any? Go ahead. MP Schmel.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and sorry for the loss of that individual. Maybe I could ask you, because it was brought up a few times in the previous witness panel, that it was building on the land claim settled in '93, and then, of course, you had the Delaney agreement, 2015-ish, give or take, implemented in '16. Compared to Delaney, what differences does this agreement have that they have or don't have?
Yes, we may see quite a few similarities between the agreements. For Delaney, though, that agreement was an Indigenous public agreement upon effective date. For this agreement specifically, it is an exclusive Indigenous government agreement, which means that Tlagot-Legotine government will exercise jurisdiction and authority over its citizens as of the effective date. However, it does have a transition incorporated into the agreement that will allow for Tlagot-Legotine government to become a public government should their population reach 70% or higher in the town of Norman Wells.
Yeah.
MP Hanley.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your intervention as well, and I want to add my condolences and to be able to honor Shannon with this is an added certainly an added feature. But just to follow on that line of question, are those aspects that you referred to that distinguish this modern treaty, is that unique if we compare it to any other especially recent modern treaty?
I would say that there are other public Indigenous governments that already exist. The transition from an exclusive Indigenous government to a public government is unique, just given the environment or the town of Norman Wells and the population demographic that exists there right now. It did make sense as part of the negotiations to incorporate a transition so that when Tlagot-Legotine government citizens represent a majority in the town, that they would have, the government would have the authority over all of residents in the town.
Could I ask one segue to that? Mr. Chair, thank you. So what's the importance of that as a precedent for other modern treaties that might be in evolution or negotiation at the moment or that are anticipated?
As in terms of precedent setting, I guess it would depend on the individual circumstances of each agreement that's being negotiated and the location where it is being negotiated. So I wouldn't be able to speak to what that could look like outside of the town of Norman Wells. But I would say that public Indigenous government already does exist, and so does exclusive Indigenous government. So it would really depend on the negotiations with those individual communities.
Thank you.
And did you have your hand up?
Answered my question, sorry.
Okay, good. Thanks, Bob. MP Greaves, you're next for the questioning. Hey, wait, well, before I go to you, I'm going to go to Deputy Gill first.
Vraiment brièvement, Monsieur le Président.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. What our colleague was saying about our colleague, I would like to extend my condolences and say that this bill is very much supported by the Bloc Québécois. I don't have any other question, but people are still living with us even through these difficult times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses. For you, Ms. Chamberlain, in British Columbia, around other recent modern land claim and treaty negotiations and other self-government agreements, we've unfortunately seen efforts to misinform and confuse members of the public about what the implications of those agreements would entail. And in many instances, the concerns and the efforts to purposefully generate that concern have focused on questions around private property ownership. I'm wondering if you could speak to whether or not you've had similar challenges in this negotiation around people being concerned about impacts on private property and what kinds of communications the government has put out to address and allay those concerns as not being warranted in this case.
Thank you for that. In this case specifically, the Saulteaux, Dene, and Métis comprehensive land claim was the agreement that addressed land rights and title in the entire Saulteaux region in the Northwest Territories. So as part of the self-government agreement negotiations, there hasn't been property title as a topic to address, so we haven't had any concerns as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, are we ready to proceed to the next part, which would be if the committee provides unanimous consent to pass clauses 2 to 44. Yes? 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 Et oui. Merci. Okay, so that,
Thank you.
shall the short title carry? Yes? Agreed? Agreed. Pass. Carried. Shall the preamble carry? Agreed? Agreed. Carried. Shall the title carry? Agreed? Agreed. Carried. Shall the bill carry? Agreed? Agreed. Shall the chair report the bill to the House? Agreed? And I'll do that ASAP. So hopefully tomorrow I will report this, and I'm thanking our team here, Taylor, and thank you for bringing us to the attention of Shannon's legacy, but also President Hodgson. I don't know if she's still online. You're also leaving a legacy to your people too, as you retire from being president. So this is good, and thank you again, President and Mr. Tan, for your work on this over the years, and thank you to the committee for getting this done expeditiously. So with that, folks, we're going to suspend and go to our next study. Chi miigwech, everyone. Going to suspend. Okay. This is great to have you here. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee is resuming its study of affordability challenges in Northern Canada. I would now like to welcome our witnesses. We have Marilyn Recanos, Co-Chief Executive Officer, and Ainuk Aura Angoti Marik, Director Trainee. And they're from Arctic Fresh Group. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And then we have from the Nunavut Seedling and Supply, Inc., Brian Tatulini, Business Development Manager. Welcome. So we are going to allocate 5 minutes to each group to speak. And just to let everybody know, you have these earpieces because we will be asking questions in English and French. And answering in which language you need to. But for the interpreters, make sure that your mic's off when you're not speaking because it just provides feedback. And only one person speak at a time. And please address everything through the chair. And yeah, and again, thanks for our wonderful interpreters for being with us today. Please proceed. 5 minutes for Arctic Fresh Group. Is one person doing it or are you sharing time? Okay, so what are you doing, 2.5 each?
2 and 3.
2 and 3. Take it away.
Go ahead, buddy.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Inuarak Angutimarik. I'm an Inuk from Nunavut. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I would like to start with a story. The first time I was taken on a seal hunt, I was 6 or 7. A few elders and family members brought me along on a community hunt because they wanted to make sure that I was exposed to our harvesting culture. I do not remember every detail, but I remember the lesson. Harvesting is about more than food. It teaches us how to survive on the land, how to work together, and how to take care of one another. What is harvested is often shared with elders and people who cannot harvest for themselves. I still carry those lessons today. Instead of harvesting on the land, I might buy a few extra groceries and share them with people who need help. The lesson is the same. Strong communities are built when people look after each other. When people talk about affordability, they talk about numbers and statistics. But for the youth, affordability is about everyday life. It is about seeing your classmates come to school hungry. It is about knowing that many families live in overcrowded homes with no places to rest, to prepare for the day in class or at work. It is about watching people leave their communities because they cannot find housing, training, or employment opportunities. Young Inuit want to build our futures in the North. We want to raise communities, families, and contribute to our communities and help shape Nunavut and Canada's future. We are proud of being the inhabitants of Canada's real North, the people who ensure that our country stays as Arctic nation. To do that, we need opportunities. We need safe and affordable housing. We need access to education, training, and good jobs. We need opportunities to learn trades, work in fisheries, participate in infrastructure projects, and build careers close to home. When governments invest in food sovereignty, housing, infrastructure, and workforce development, they are investing in young people. They are creating opportunities that allow Inuit youth to stay in their communities, build meaningful careers, and strengthen the North for the future generations. I hope this community committee will remember that affordability is not only about lowering costs today, it is about creating opportunity, self-reliance, and hope for the future. Kuya Namit, thank you.
Thank you very much. Marilyn, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and it's on? Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs. Thank you for inviting us to appear before you today as part of your study on affordability challenges in Northern Canada. My name is Merlin Racines. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Arctic Fresh Group, a Nunavut-based Inuit-focused business that works across food security, logistics, housing, infrastructure, and workforce development. While I'm not an Inuk, Nunavut has been my home for many years. My wife is an Inuk. Together, we're raising Inuit children. Our family, our business, and our future are deeply rooted in Nunavut communities. I want to begin by sharing a story. Last year, and again this spring, Arctic Fresh worked with Canadian North, local hamlets, Inuit organizations, and community partners to deliver food hampers across households across Nunavut, including Reese Fjords, Canada's northmost community. The hampers contain fruits, vegetables, meats. There was no applications, no eligibility requirements, and no complicated process. The goal was simple: ensure every household receives support. This year marks our 10th year supporting communities such as Igloolik and our 7th year delivering this initiative across the region. As local businesses, profits generated through our work are reinvested into employment, training, food programs, food banks, and community development initiatives. What this initiative taught us is affordability is not abstract policy. Discussion is about whether families can put healthy food on the table. It is whether about communities have the infrastructure they need to support themselves, and it is about whether young people can build a future in the North. At its core, affordability in Nunavut is driven by our continual reliance on southern supply chains. Whether we are talking about food, housing materials, fuel, equipment, and many other things, the cost of moving products into the communities drives up the cost for families across the territory. That is why our message today is simple. Improving affordability requires investing in Northern self-reliance. These investments are about more than reducing costs. They're also about strengthening Arctic sovereignty and securing by ensuring Northern communities have the infrastructure, the workforce, and the economic capacity needed to support a permanent and thriving presence across the Arctic. Projects of national interest such as ports, transportation corridors, energy infrastructures, and housing are nation-building investments that create economic opportunity for Inuit while advancing Canada's strategic objectives in the North. When Inuit communities are empowered to build and operate critical infrastructure, affordability, economic development, and sovereignty objectives are advanced together. We saw just how vulnerable Nunavut's economy can be during the COVID-19 pandemic and during the early stages of Canada-United States trade dispute. When disruptions to supply chains, rising costs were felt quickly and accurate across the territory. Those experiences reinforce an important lesson. Affordability, economic resilience, and Arctic sovereignty are deeply interconnected, and greater Northern self-reliance must be part of Canada's long-term strategy. For generations, Inuit has sustained themselves through harvesting, fishing, sharing networks. Strengthening those systems is one of the most effective long-term affordability measures available to Northern communities. We need investment in harvesting infrastructure, community freezers, fisheries, fruit processing facilities, and support the blue economy. We also need operational funding to ensure the systems can function over long term. Second, we need transportation and logistic infrastructure that lowers costs for families. Northern communities need more runways, they need airport storage facilities, cold storage, warehousing, improving cargo handling capacity, and better harbor and sea lift infrastructure. Third, we need to recognize that food infrastructure must match social realities. Programs such as Nutrition North can help, but they do not work for every household. Some families continue to struggle to access healthy food. That's why we need community food centers, food banks, necessary programs to strengthen, harvest, and food sharing networks. Finally, affordability cannot be separated from housing and workforce development. Arctic Fresh began as a food company, and we extended into housing and infrastructure because we saw how interconnected these challenges are. Every project we undertake includes training and skills development. Our goal is not only to build homes, but to train Inuit for the long term, operate and maintain their infrastructure in their homeland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brian, you'll have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Good day, and thank you for the opportunity to address this committee today. My name's Brian Tatuini. I'm originally from Rankin Inlet, Nunavut, but I've called Iqaluit my home for a number of years now. I'm the Business Development Manager for Nunavut Sea Link and Supply, a majority Inuit-owned company based in Iqaluit that delivers essential sea lift services across Nunavut. We transport general cargo and fuel, supporting economic development throughout the territory, and bring many years of Arctic experience and a versatile fleet to do the work. My role focuses on understanding developments across Nunavut and offering logistic solutions. Our customers include all levels of government, the private sector and resource sector, industry, and individuals in the communities we serve. We operate a fleet of 13 dry cargo vessels serving all 25 of Nunavut's communities, all 14 of Nunavik's communities in northern Quebec, as well as the resource sector clients across both regions. We play a key role in delivering cargo safely, reliably, and efficiently. Our operations take place under some of the most challenging conditions in the world, with a short seasonal window. Every community in the north receives at least 1 ship per season. Some receive 2, others receive 3, and more depending on demand. We load cargo primarily along the St. Lawrence Seaway in Valleyfield, Côte St. Catherine on the south shore of Montreal, and also Bécancour. This year, we also plan to have an operation out of the Port of Churchill after more than a decade of not going there regularly. Due to limited infrastructure in many communities, we specialize in self-sustained cargo delivery. So we take everything with us when we go and deliver cargo for communities. We carry tugboats, barges, loaders, so that we're able to safely deliver cargo in the communities we serve. But that also takes away space from revenue-generating cargo for when we visit these communities. Our operating season typically begins around this time of year, with the last ships returning from Canada's Arctic by late October or early November. Outside of our busy season, we focus on debriefing on our operations, learning how our customers, such as Arctic Fresh Group, have experience with us, and so we can continually make improvements to our operations, and also prepare for next year. Our Arctic is growing, and we've added capacity in recent years, including just last week announcing an addition to our fleet. Like I said, we're up to 13 ships now. At the same time, it's important for us as an organization to understand what development is coming to the Arctic, so that we can continue to scale our operations effectively. We recognize the federal government's commitment to Arctic development through major projects such as the Grays Bay Port and Road project, as well as the Iqaluit Hydro project. As a Nunavummiut, I'm very excited to learn about these investments and the increased attention that we have. We are also encouraged by the investments to modernize the Canadian Coast Guard's fleet of icebreakers, and look forward to our continued collaboration to deliver essential goods and services to our north. Investments in community and marine infrastructure are particularly important. Projects like the Port of Iqaluit, which opened in 2023, and smaller improvements such as sea lift laydown areas and ramps in other communities demonstrate meaningful progress and offer models that could be expanded to other communities. And again, continued investment in things such as the Canadian Hydrographic Service to update all of the charting and navigational aids that are in Canada's north. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and looking forward to some of the questions.
Well, thank you very much. We were going to start out with a 6-minute round. And first up, we have Bob for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you all for coming. I know it's a long journey to get to Ottawa, isn't it? And it's the flights to Ottawa are a little bit better from Iqaluit, but if you're any further north or in Cambridge Bay, it's very much a long day. So again, thanks for coming today. My questions will be for Brian Tatuini. And Brian, you live in the north, and I know you have a good job with the Sea Lift, and you also work for the co-op, the food provider, key food provider in the north. And I've shopped at the local grocery store there, and I see how expensive it is. And that's even in Iqaluit, where it's kind of relatively inexpensive. You get further north, and it gets even far more expensive, right? As you know. You have a young family. I know you've got, I think, how many kids do you have?
2 boys.
2 boys, yeah. And you and your wife have good jobs, right? What is it like to buy groceries in Iqaluit?
Well, it's relatively expensive, I'll say. I typically, we as a family of 4 probably spend between $300 to $500 a week on groceries.
For a family of 4?
Yeah.
Wow. And what is it? And I'm assuming you're not buying fancy things when you're buying groceries. You're buying. Maybe give us some examples of some food that Canadians would buy, milk and some of those examples. But what has stood out to you, because you've been here too once in a while in Montreal? What are some foods that really stand out to you being exceptionally expensive in Iqaluit?
It's pretty much everything that's not eligible for Nutrition North Canada. Things that are not deemed, I guess, nutritious enough to fall under the program. You know, if we're trying to save time, some of the, you know, the quick meals, the frozen meals that you prepare, those tend to be more expensive just because there aren't an eligible item under Nutrition North. But also overall, like, it is expensive. It is, you know, there's really no other way to explain it. There are higher costs associated with having a retail operation in the north. And yeah, I get the luxury of being able to say, I can afford to feed my family, but, you know, it's the challenges that the retailer might have to offer good pricing, or, you know, there's just a lot of costs involved.
Is it safe to say food has gone up in the last couple of years? It hasn't gone down.
I would guess so. You know, with inflation is a real thing, and it is certainly a challenge.
So, according to Stats Canada, 58.1% of people in Nunavut live in food insecure households, many of which are your neighbors and people that I've met. Kevin stands out to me. Very difficult situation. It's the highest rate in the country and more than double the national average. And so you didn't say this, but I'm gonna. The Prime Minister said last year, Canadians will hold us to account by their experience at the grocery store when they are paying their electricity bill, or when their children are looking for, they and their children are looking for a place to live. And people might say, well, look, food's always been expensive in the north. But Northerners took him at his word by saying he would be measured by the price of groceries, and they haven't gone down, they've gone up. And I guess that comes back to the second part of affordability to me, is having the ability to buy the food. So it's one thing to have expensive food, but if you have a good job, and you and your wife have good jobs, you can afford a house, and you can afford the food. Even though it's expensive, it's affordable, right, technically. You spend a lot of time at a key piece of infrastructure that you mentioned, the Port of Iqaluit. And it's a key part in building a vibrant economy in Nunavut. Maybe just explain the difference that the Port of Iqaluit has made, maybe as a sea lift business, but even to making food cost less or making it more affordable.
Certainly. So the Port of Iqaluit is a beautiful piece of infrastructure. I think it's been long overdue. Iqaluit is a growing community, but it's also it's Nunavut's biggest community. So that piece of infrastructure has increased our efficiency to be able to deliver essential goods for the community. We went from a week, 10 to 14 days to offload a ship at within an hour of high tide to being able to deliver cargo, throughout the regular workday rather than trying to meet a specific tide. So we went from offloading 2, maybe 3 barges a tide to being able to deliver consistently throughout the day. So for our operation, it's increased the efficiency, but also, having a safe area to work always reduces the risk of any damage happening. So again, these are all some of the real benefits that we've seen since an important piece of infrastructure is available. That's not the same across other communities. Other communities have a much more limited infrastructure. And if you can see, more of those kinds of investment, not ports in every community, but even as little as improving the ramp or laydown areas in communities, that would make a huge difference for us to make it, safer and more reliable and more efficient.
Right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, for 6 minutes, Lori, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. Akswaro koveanak po kaya mayan ni takudlone amaro unikak se upigibase inuaka upigibagit atitok innakoy nang niyak puti anguna subtirutit taman na anguna sung nakpimmagerong man. What I've said, first of all, thank you for appearing, and specifically to Inuagak. I hope that as you be a productive young adult into adulthood, older, that I hope that you remain a hunter all your life. I think being a hunter is such an important skill. I wanted to ask my first question to Merlin. We had met a few weeks ago, and you were talking about some of the challenges that you have in making sure that there can be more self-reliance, as you mentioned. I wonder if you can share some recommendations on what this government can do to help make more self-reliant communities, to help make sure that businesses can help make sure that we have a more affordable cost of living for Nunavummiut.
Thank you, Lori, for that, and thank you for taking that time to speak about that. And it all goes down to both giving the opportunity and the skills and the tools to be able to capitalize on that opportunity. I want to be fully transparent. The North has been definitely, great with opportunity. There has been many opportunities coming to Nunavut. Unfortunately, we have not been giving the skills necessary to capture that opportunity, and therefore, a lot of the times that opportunity ends up escaping the Nunavut for Southern Canada. If we today did a full study on the workforce in Nunavut, a lot of it is transient workforce that comes to Nunavut to capitalize on that opportunity. And that's great for Southern Canada, but when a Southern person comes out to Nunavut, they don't spend on food, they don't spend on accommodations, they're not buying trucks, skidoos, or anything like that to support their families. A lot of those funds are sort of exported back to their homes, which is totally okay. But then that leaves the individuals at the community level wanting to participate and unable to participate because they don't have that skills. And so developing that skill, allowing them to take control of their future is what is needed. The opportunity is there. It's every single day. We talk about construction, housing, infrastructure, ports, a lot of opportunity. But there has been very little communication in regards to how do we build up the population to capture that opportunity. And so more as ensuring that those opportunities are also in part with culture. We hire, right now we have 82% Inuit content across our projects. We employ around 284 Inuit. And we we make sure that when the belugas are coming or fishing season or hunting season, there's no questions asked. They're allowed to leave work and go do that. We have specific requirements to fulfill those needs. Thank you.
I do also want to ask questions to Brian, and I don't have enough time. You mentioned, Brian, for example, that some of the things that might help include seafloor mapping or sea lift laydown areas and ramps. I'm wondering if you could share with us if those if this government invested in those kinds of things, would that have an impact on affordability for the North?
Any kind of infrastructure that's improved will always make things run smoother, operations run smoother, less likelihood of any sort of damage that takes place. Again, I'm not opposed to any kind of infrastructure development anywhere in the North because we're so deficient in it. Again, any sort of investment that improves the supply chain in across the North will always make a difference in terms of affordability. Part of it is making sure our cargo arrives safely, and when we have safe places to work and lay down our cargo, it will always improve the overall operation.
I think a year or two ago there was a sea lift that was grounded, and I'm wondering if you could share your experience, whether that was related to the lack of bathymetry that has happened or whether there needs to be an increase in that activity to help make sure that sea lift can happen across the North more safely.
Specifically to I guess an incident, I don't know the exact details of that particular incident firsthand, but again, if the federal government made those investments to improve the charting that we have or the ice surveys that take place, navigational aids that are established across the North, that would make significant improvements to our operations. It'd be safer for us to transit areas where perhaps there aren't as many spots that have known depth. So again, it's generalized in, it's identified on maps where this is a general area that, is safe to passage, but in between those points, there could be something that's an anomaly or something that wasn't initially picked up. This is why investments in scanning or the Canadian Hydrographic Service offering updated charts and typical transit routes would make a significant difference for us.
Thank you very much. Deputy Gill, 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being with us today and for having travelled so far to come to meet us. As an MP for the Northern Coast, my riding is not Nunavut, but there are very many similarities in many areas. And in fact, Mr. Tatwini, on your LinkedIn account, you talk about infrastructures a lot, and you talked about them today, and I feel that it's one of the keys for development. You talked about safety for northern populations. Could you tell us more about this? It's very interesting. You say that as a person in the field, you can perceive what's going to happen and what will be needed for development and also for populations. Could you tell us a little bit more about this issue of essential strategic infrastructure for northern populations? I know that in my riding, people are under threat. I can understand that this is the cornerstone for northern living.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to listen to the live translation at the same time of the question. I do speak a lot about the challenges we have, and quite frankly, I try and ensure the public knows that the things I post are meant to teach the wider public or our stakeholders of some of the challenges we have and things like the logistics timelines of federal government or federal budget or any government budget doesn't meet the sea lift deadlines that we have. So those sorts of challenges are like if a major project is moving forward and it's a government project at any level, you know, April 1st is when money becomes available, but it's already too late for the season. So that often leads to increased costs for projects because the timeline of funding becoming available doesn't match the logistics that are required to deliver on those projects, especially if they're larger projects. And this is why it's important for any government to involve us as the logistics service providers earlier in the conversation so that we're all prepared to deliver on these important projects across all of our communities that we serve. So, you know, those are some of the things that I would say a government can look to make improvements on. Try and match the timelines for projects with the logistics that get the projects to those communities.
Merci beaucoup. Les jeunes sont...
Thank you very much. Young people are rarely present at these committee meetings. Unfortunately, as you just said, they're probably the most concerned. Mr. Recinos, you talked about the fact that young people, to be able to live in the north, you might want to live in the north, and your colleague also talked about the fact that you wanted to work and have opportunities. But what would the right conditions be to ensure that young people can think, well, we do have a future in the north, and not only do we have a future, but we really have the future we wish for and hope for? Mr. Recinos, and then Mr. Martin-Marie, maybe you'd like to take the floor.
Thank you for that. And people in Nunavut want to live. They want to thrive in Nunavut, but a lot of the times, due to housing, education, they leave their communities, and the chances of them coming back are slim to none. So we get them to go get educated, but they can't come back because there is no housing, there is no opportunity for them to come back, and that's one of the things that we need to ensure. But the second aspect of is the education. Like, you know, we just announced the university for Arvia, for Nunavut, Inuit Nunangat. The Arctic College runs on things, but we have never really looked at how can we deliver better education at the community level, at the ground workforce, you know, and so we need to ensure that we're doing that. We're a company, you know, a business, and we're actually doing social economics at the community level on creating education, creating jobs, creating capacity, but we can't do it alone. You know, we can't do it alone. In order for us to scale, we need that partnership. You want to add anything about youth? Okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Et si toutefois, Monsieur le Président, je ne sais pas...
Mr. Chair, if I may add something, but you could also send in something in writing. You could add something later on. Now, do I have time? Now, Mr. Recinos, you talked about the crisis. We know that Nordic communities are weakened during crisis situations. So they're sort of slightly removed or cut off from the continent. It's an odd way of saying it, but we cut off for food, for health, for education. So what could be done? There is a lack. It means that there's weakness. And how do we respond to this fragility and ensure that these communities are resilient and strong?
La deuxième ronde, si on en a une seconde, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Or during my second round of questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Now we go for the 5 minutes to MP Zimmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, last two very brief questions for you, Brian. How much does a house cost in Iqaluit?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, a lot more than what I paid for the house I have now. So I'll say it's probably getting pretty close to $1 million for a home in Iqaluit. It's high.
And you're not talking a fancy house. This is a pretty basic, because I've seen your house and it's still, you know, it's a nice house, but still fairly basic. That house now to replace would be close to $1 million.
I'll say probably pretty close to that, yeah.
And then again, if you can find one to even buy, if you have $1 million to buy it with, right? So it's difficult to even, it's a very challenged market for inventory.
Absolutely. I mean, the city of Iqaluit has been working to have expanded areas of development. That is certainly part of the challenge in a community like Iqaluit, but also more widely across the territory is availability of developed land and also the infrastructure to hold or carry to be able to build those homes. Those are all challenges.
So a quick question. I know this is tough to summarize, maybe 30 seconds, Brian. Tell us about your story. I know you have a really amazing story about how your family was almost couch surfing at one point, and there was a pivotal change around housing that changed your directions really of all your lives of your family. Could you just explain as best you can?
Absolutely. So early in my life, my parents didn't have a home. They lived either at either parents' houses or our aunts and uncles. So I, as a young person, a very young person, remember sleeping in overcrowded situations, in laundry rooms. So where I can definitively say there's a change in my life is when we were given the opportunity to have our own home. And that has a tremendous impact on anybody who's been given those opportunities. I am where I am today because my parents were successful in getting a home in 1987. I remember that. I was 4 years old, and it was like a light switch. It changed my life. The trajectory of my life and where I am today was the result of opportunities to have housing, to get out of overcrowding situations, and those sorts of things. Those types of investments make a big difference in an individual's life, including.
I'll just finish with this because I know your story, but it also, your dad became a tradesman. Your mom is now an elected MLA, and congratulations to your mom. She just was elected, I think, this year, right? Early? But it changed really the whole outlook, even as a professional and opportunities job-wise, and it really was such a life-changing experience. So I'll pass the rest of my time to Jamie Schmel. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Zimmer, for that time. 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Quickly, Merlin, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, so I apologize if it's okay if I call you Merlin. You had said a few times in your words when you were addressing Ms. Idlout, talking about wanting to build the future and kind of unleashing the population to reach their full potential. I've never been to Nunavut. It's on my list of places to go, and I hope to do that very soon. So please help me understand when you're saying you use the word allow a lot. You said allow us to do this or allow this. And so I guess my question to help me understand, what's stopping you, what's stopping the population from reaching that full potential you talk about?
Thank you. So the reality is that there is a lot of red tape around everything that is done. I'll give you an example of it. In 1980s and 1990s, Inuit were building homes, by themselves. Later, it transitioned that you needed to have red seals and you needed to have the paperwork and the education and all of this to be able to do that. And so a lot of the people that had that capacity were sidelined for individuals brought in from the South to build the homes, even though they could do it. They could demonstrate the capacity to do it. But because they did not have the paperwork, the certification to do it, they weren't able to do it. And so that extended beyond just trades and beyond things at the community level. And the reality is, today, we are trying to see how we can take that back. And again, going back to education, doing education at the community level without having to leave their community. And when I say allow, I mean education is run by government. How a certification is done is run by government. All of this is run by government. And when I mean allow is let's work together to find a common pathway to success for everyone.
Thank you. The worse things got. That's all the time we have. So you have to go to the next speaker, but thank you for that. 5 minutes, MP Hanley, please.
That's not what I heard, but Speaking of government, just by the way, I'm going to ask all three of you questions, and so get ready, Inuarak, but I'll start with Brian. Mr. Tatwini. Speaking of government investment, almost 64 million from the federal government towards the deep sea port in Iqaluit, which you referred to. So obviously these federal investments are incredibly important, but I wanted to just touch briefly on what you are looking for in opportunities for the defense investments and how that will relate to the infrastructure needs that you see, particularly with your sea lift experience.
Certainly, thank you for the question. I mean, if the government is thinking of making significant defense investments in the north, it would be good for us as the logistics supply industry to understand what's coming so that we can best meet it. In terms of priorities or what government should be spending on, I think I'll leave that to the Department of Defense to decide what they might see.
There's a lot of conversation going on, and it's hard to listen to the testimony.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, in terms of where priorities might be, I think I would leave that to the Department of Defense and what they see fit. But again, if they're planning major infrastructure projects anywhere in the north, us as the logistics service providers should be involved in those conversations so that it can run smoother. The earlier we're involved, the more effective we can provide a service.
Good advice, thank you. Inuarak, am I saying that okay? You talked about, I think, quite powerfully about the importance of being able to stay in the community. Mr. Racines, your father referred to that link as well. But tell me what keeps youth in the community, and not just you, but your friends, your peers. What are the elements that we need to add to enable youth to be trained, to learn, to stay in the community as a key to addressing the economic development of the region?
I'd say that what keep youth in Nunavut would be workforce development, food affordability, more housing infrastructures, and local independence. When Southerners are brought to Nunavut to work in construction or other things, a lot of the money goes back to Canada, and that's not a problem, but not a bad thing, I mean, sorry. But that leaves out a lot of money bleeding, going outside of Nunavut, and instead of generating more money in Nunavut. Sorry.
Yeah, that's great, and that will give me time, I think, to pass on to Mr. Racines. And I mean, you rightly weave together those themes of Arctic sovereignty, infrastructure development, nutrition. Clearly, you have a lot of expertise and experience, as you know. In addition to the infrastructure needs that you point out, as you know, Nutrition North itself is under reform and under review. If you were to just within the sphere of Nutrition North, what maybe 3 top recommendations that you think would that the minister should take home with how we can do better with Nutrition North?
You have 37 seconds, so you're probably going to do one and then send 2 in writing.
Not a problem. So my top one would be when the food mill was being replaced by Nutrition North, the Government of Canada had a contract with Canada Post for the freight and logistics of the food. I think it would be my recommendation that the Government of Canada goes back to that model, allowing them to negotiate in bulk the logistics side of shipments.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And send the other two in writing, please. Okay, so the last two spots, we have a conservative spot and a liberal spot, and there was some discussions. We're going to do a quick 2-minute, 2-minute. Okay, so MP Schmale, are you doing the 2 minutes for your side, or MP
Sure.
Zimmer? Okay, go ahead.
Pick up where we left off here. Okay, so in the 80s, you were building your own homes. You figured out a way to do it. You're keeping the money local. People didn't have to leave their community. Then the government comes along and says, we need A, B, C, D, E, F, and it goes on, and they bring workers in, they send the money out, and things don't seem to be improving. Then we have one government program after another, but we're seeing here, especially with our young friend in the middle here, they want the opportunities in the north. So, you know, we talked earlier on about education and how that hasn't been so great up north, but yet the government runs that too. So how do we fix this if the government seems to be controlling everything but delivering not great results?
And after you answer that, I apologize. Deputy Gill has 2.5 minutes too as well to, no, wait, we are at here. Yeah, so we're going to do 2.5 for Deputy Gill if you had some time too as well. But I'll let them answer this question and then go back to you, okay? Merci beaucoup. I apologize.
Yep, no problem. So how do we fix this? That was your question?
More local control is better than sending it to centralized government.
So a lot of the times decisions are made here without real involvement of community or understanding of community or what's really going on at the community level. And so those decisions a lot of the times have great intentions, great ideas, but the execution of it can be extremely hard because there has not been consultation or really communication in how the deliverables will be done. One of the biggest failures for the Arctic is delivering. You have to understand and know your space to be able to deliver, and a lot of the times everything is done great, but the deliver action of it is where we get hung up on it, and
Thank you very much. Yep. Deputy Gill, 2.5 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You've given me more time than I was allowed. Very generous. But we're here for the same reason. Mr. Resino, earlier on, you weren't allowed to answer the question on the crises the crises that highlight the weaknesses in the north and how we could strengthen or make their resilience stronger. I'll let you answer that question. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for that. So, when the crisis happened, COVID-19, and again, the trades, one of the things that we've seen was that we were extremely vulnerable to it. When logistics and flights started to not fly to the north, we realized that, food and things. And so, again, making the self-independence and sort of most self-sufficient for those communities. When you garden, you have food, you have things, is the same thing. Supporting that social and local economy is key. And ensuring that, again, those opportunities are kept capitalized by the local communities. It's totally okay for capitalization across Canada and everything else, but let's make sure that there is an allocated to the local communities as well.
Tiffany?
Est-ce qu'il me restait quelques secondes?
Oui.
Do I have a few more seconds? Well, I wanted to talk about food sovereignty. We talked about Nutrition North, but it's not something that empowers the population. Is there something else that could be done for food sovereignty?
Sorry, I missed it a little bit.
Oui, merci beaucoup.
I wanted to ask about. Can you hear me? Can you hear the interpretation? Yes. Okay. I wanted to ask you the question about food sovereignty, because we talked about Nutrition North. You're talking about breakthroughs of when a ship doesn't arrive in or an aeroplane. How could we improve this food sovereignty in the north and empower communities?
Thank you. So there's multiple ways now. We have sort of been the community's been introduced to Western foods, vegetables through the Nutrition North program. Food Mill wasn't part of that, but Nutrition North it is. Hydroponics, teaching schools, hydroponics, how to grow things. We're doing this with the Canadian Space Agency on a pilot project, but it's needed across. But also country food, harvesting, supporting those harvesting supports, but also the interchanging of country food between communities. Some communities have fish, others have walrus, others have makta. Allowing Nutrition North wouldn't subsidize it unless it's certified by a Health Canada processing plant. Why? We're used to eating that country food. Let's allow that transportation and let's cover those costs of that transportation without that certification. Again, working together with communities.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Thank you very much.
From Labrador, 2 minutes, and that will be the last question and answer period.
Thank you. Hello, Brian, and I just want to say I consider myself fortunate to call you a friend, and I'm going to try and get 2 questions in for all 3 of you. Highest food cost in Canada is in Nunavut. Historically, the lowest fuel cost in Canada has been in Nunavut. Jet fuel is cheaper, gas is cheaper, diesel is cheaper. Could you tell us why you think that's so?
In my experience or my understanding is the government of Nunavut does have something that covers all of the delivery of the cost. So, where it's not seen is places like Nunavik, where they have much higher rates of fuel than anywhere in Nunavut. So part of my understanding is the territorial government itself subsidizes part of the costs that are involved at the pump. They pay the distributor, they pay the delivery of the fuel, and they buy the fuel. So all of those are things that the government of Nunavut does that is not seen really anywhere other than maybe the NWT. I don't know what it's like in the Yukon, but in Nunavut, it's certainly PPD that covers all of those.
Sure. Also buying in bulk. Once again, the government of Nunavut goes out and buys in bulk ahead of it being able to negotiate a much better deal and is not so volatile to, conflict and other things across socioeconomics.
And lastly, with 30 seconds for one of you or both of you, do you see a way that we could be integrating the airline freight service and the marine freight service to get a better results for people that live in Nunavut?
Great question. I know for us, we're very seasonal, but we also have a much shorter window. In terms of the airline, they have their challenges as well. All I can say is from my experience in working in both worlds, they each have their own specific challenges, and it would be difficult to maybe integrate some of those, how it all works because they're so used to working in silos.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for your testimony.
Mr. Chair?
Also, yes?
Sorry, just to interrupt.
Yep.
Just for 20 seconds. I just wanted to thank you all, the witnesses, for coming today. Brian, Interac, and I know it's very intimidating to sit in the hot seat, but you did a great job. And thanks, Merlin. Albert Netzer sends his best. He says you're pretty good, so you're good in his stead. But thank you, Chair, for having them today.
Well, thank you very much, and just said what the chair needed to say. So thank you very much, Chimewich. And we're going to suspend, and we're going to come back in camera and hopefully finish off the policing report, okay? So if you guys...